Hi folks, I hope you've been doing well. I've posted a whole bunch of new information to Google Classroom today, but to save you the trouble of having to read through all of it, I figured I'd just post a video version of it so you can hear me just sort of talk through it, get a little bit of extra explanation, and hear my voice because it's probably been a while since you've heard it. So what I'm calling this is my plan for the remainder of the semester. There's always the chance that slight things could change between now and the end of the semester, but based on everything that I know and I've gotten ready so far, here's what I'm thinking the best routine for yourself would be going forward. And it's really all about a weekly routine, as I said. So you'll notice I won't be looking at the camera too much from now on, as I'll just be reading through some of the things that I'm showing you here on the screen. So first off, in terms of a weekly routine, teachers, you may have heard this already, have been asked to ensure that the lessons that we assign do not take much more than 3 hours per week per course. Now, obviously, everyone will need to spend different amounts of time to feel comfortable, so take the amount of time that you need. But in terms of lessons, here's the schedule that I'll be using. I'm going to post a new video lesson 3 days a week, specifically Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And little pro tip that I have for you is to, for yourself, plan a specific time on each of those days to devote to those lessons. And that way it'll hopefully keep it separate from some of your other coursework if you specifically devote a special time to that. Now, as you've seen so far, these lessons will either be created by myself in the future or some of the initial ones will be created by Mr. Smith. I'll say that the majority of the ones in Unit 2B and Unit 3 will be Mr. Smith, so that's what you can expect going forward. But then the remaining units will be myself, making them in a similar way to how I'm doing it right now. The nice thing about those, though, what we're going to try and make sure is that for myself and Mr. Smith's videos, we're going to go through our regular course notes in the exact same way and style that we would have if you had been with us in our regular classroom. So in saying that, also keep in mind, of course, that the blank and filled in versions of the notes will always be posted for an entire unit at a time. So if you do have a printer and ink at home, you can always print them off and fill them in directly, or just copy the practice examples down onto a separate sheet of paper, and then just use the filled in notes later on as a completed reference guide. Now, in terms of where I'm going to start, we can't assume that everyone's had access or been able to use all of the things that I've posted so far. So I'm actually going to go back to where we left off before March break, which means I'm going to be going back to lesson 7 of Unit B. That's where we first introduced something called the cosine law. That's where I'm going to start from. So for those of you that have been able to access Google Classroom all along, you might have been able to go through some of the videos and things that I've posted, and you might have already mastered a lot of those skills, and that's great. What I do plan to do then is post a link with some future videos that have already been created. So for those of you that don't want to wait around on my schedule, you're welcome to work ahead at whatever schedule or pace works better for you. But the important thing to remember is that for anyone that has not had access or maybe hasn't really had a chance to go through any of the things that I've posted so far, that's totally okay. Start along with me on lesson 7 of Unit B, and or Unit 2B, I should say, and we'll still be moving at a pace that's going to allow us to cover all of the most essential things that you'll need going forward in other math courses. So bottom line is no one will be missing out on anything. Beyond that, plan some time for yourself to work on the homework questions, of course. That's the much more important thing than just going through the videos, is to try and practice those skills yourself. And I'll always make sure that I'm posting, of course, an answers document, so make sure you're checking your answers as you go. So a suggestion might be to try and work on some of the homework stuff, maybe on a little bit of time on Tuesday, Thursday, and weekends. And that might spread things out and keep your skills a little bit more fresh, or you're welcome to just try the homework right after doing the video lesson. I will also continue to post some additional links from Khan Academy. So those are some of the ones that I posted originally to go along specifically with the cosine and sine law stuff. And I'm hoping that those might be helpful just as additional examples or giving you a little bit different explanation. So if mine or Mr. Smith's explanation isn't working out perfectly for you, or you want a little bit more explanation that is given in the examples in our notes, you can always try and take a look at those Khan Academy videos as well. Now, sure you've heard some of this from your other teachers maybe already, but in case you haven't, I know you guys have had lots of questions about what is this all going to mean for marks and report cards especially. So, a couple things that are the bottom line take-home messages. You will not receive a midterm report card, so that's important to note. But it's also good to keep in mind that you will receive a final report card. Now, the mark on that will not be any lower than the average mark that you achieved so far on all tests before the break. So, if your overall test mark was, let's say, an 80%, that is the lowest that your mark will be at the end of the year. It could be higher than that, though, based on other forms of evidence and assessments that I'm going to talk about a little bit later on that we might be able to do between now and the end of the year. So essentially what I'm saying is assessments can boost your grade higher than it was before. So you have lots of opportunities to do that, but nothing that we do between now and then is going to make your mark any lower. So the bottom line is that we want that to take the pressure off you, to focus on just working at your own pace and absorbing as much of the material as you can, getting as much practice as you can, and trying to get yourself ready for next year without worrying too much about how it's going to affect that thing on your report card at the end of it all. What I will say, though, is that I'm sure some of you also have questions about what your specific mark is. So what I'm going to try and do is early next week, I'm going to create just a fake assignment in Google Classroom, and it's just going to be called Your Mark So Far. So this won't actually be an assignment at all. There's nothing you'll have to do on your end. But by creating an assignment in that way in Classroom, I'm allowed to then submit a grade to you in a private way through Google Classroom. So that grade will literally be what your average mark was so far up to all the stuff that we did by March break. And that way you'll have an idea of where you're at so far. And see, for some of you, if that mark is something that you want to bump up or you feel you really need to bump up, then you'll have some idea of where you need to go from there. Now, to bump that mark up, I need to have some way of assessing your learning. And that's going to be a little bit tricky over the next little while. One way that I do plan to use, though, is a website called Knowledge Hook. So obviously, we're not going to be able to complete formal tests or assignments in exactly the same way that we would have in class. But I want to give you the opportunity to bump that grade up and show me that your skills have improved since I last saw you. So Knowledge Hook is one way that I'm going to try and do that. And some more information will be coming probably next week or possibly even the week after. What I'll be able to do is assign you things called missions. And those missions are essentially just extra practice questions. And the questions all come directly from our regular curriculum. But the nice thing about it is that it gives you some extra resources, like it can provide you with hints if you're a little bit stuck. It can actually give you extra video examples. And it can even give you similar questions. If you really struggled repeatedly with a certain type, it can give you extra similar ones to try and practice it all over again. What's most important for me, though, is then it also has a teacher screen that will allow me to see what sorts of things you've been able to complete, how you did with them, and specifically, it's going to help me identify what are some of the skills that you're still really struggling with. And that'll give me an idea of how to assess your learning and give me a better idea of maybe how I could change or bump your mark from where it was before as well. The thing with Knowledge Hook, though, is that it is a multiple choice format. So I'm looking into various options in terms of the best way to try and look at your full written solutions, because it's still very important to get practice in writing things out in a full written way. That's obviously going to be an important expectation in all math courses moving forward. So it's really important to get lots of practice with that. I'm not sure if the best route will be something like getting you to write things down on paper and sending me a picture of your work. That might be a route that we go. Or if there's ways that we can do it through some sort of online video chat. We're exploring some of those options as well, but we're still waiting to get a little bit more direction about what the rules around that will be from the school board. So more details will come on that. And then last but not least, of course, I want to make sure that you have places to turn for extra help and support. I'll talk about myself in just a second, but I want to make sure I reiterate again that for anyone up to grade 10, so that includes you folks, you can really make use of this website called Mathify. And it's brought to us by TVO and the Ontario government. And it's really easy to register. for any student to receive free online one-on-one tutoring. So as I said, right now we're still working out the details about how we could possibly have a live video chat with one another. But with Mathify, they've already got that all sorted out. So they have a nice secure way that you can connect with a free online tutor in a one-to-one video session if you want, or even just through audio, or even just text. And they can help you through. Nice thing is too, they are Ontario certified teachers, so they're trained right here in Ontario and with our specific curriculum. And they've extended their hours during all of this craziness that's been happening recently to try and support you guys from home. So they are now available basically all day and evening on Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And they've always offered a little bit of time on Sunday as well, if you're available in the afternoon or evening on Sunday from 3:30 to 9 p.m. So if you just click on this link here, it can give you some easy instructions for getting yourself registered as a student, and your parents can take a look at that website as well. That's something I'd really recommend if you're looking for options beyond just what myself or the lessons can provide. It's obviously going to be hard to get out to see an actual live tutor, so the online tutoring is going to be a great option for you to take a look at. But of course, the most specific questions and concerns that you're going to have are best directed to myself. So for now, I'll say that the best way is still to get in touch with me through email. If it's a simple question, I'm going to do my best to just answer it in an email form, but I'm sure you can picture that trying to answer a math question just by typing out a text email can be pretty tricky. So again, I'm working to try and figure out the best way to do this through some sort of virtual video chat, if that's allowed and possible in the future, but we're still waiting on some details for that. But if it's a question that several students are asking, or if it's just one that's very tricky to explain through an email, in some cases I can even create a video of myself explaining it, just like I'm doing right now, and post that for all to see. And hopefully everyone who maybe also had that question can see that same answer. And you can send questions on any day you'd like, but keep in mind that probably Tuesdays and Thursdays will likely be the days that I'm most available for extra and additional help. So really consider using these days, as I said, sort of in between those lesson days, to focus on the challenging questions that you might have thought of or things that you might want to ask. I know this is a ton of information to throw at you. Take some time to really absorb it and think about it. Reread some of these things at your own pace if you want to. Make sure that you can still access everything that we've used on Google Classroom. And always continue to keep an eye every day on Google Classroom for new announcements and new instructions, even though the videos specifically will only be posted on the 3-day-a-week schedule that I mentioned earlier. In general, if you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to me through email and we'll try and find a way to resolve anything that you're concerned about. Take care, folks.